20s attending a Big 12 school and football's only cost about $20. Given this information, it's reasonable to accept this provisionally without a terribly high standard of evidence beyond my own testimony. If I were to claim that I own a decommissioned World War II fighter plane, you would quite reasonably be less willing to take my word for it. You'd probably want to see photos or video of me with it, or a title and receipt, or even see it for yourself before you believed me. This is reasonable. World War II fighter planes are rare, enormous, and extremely expensive, far beyond the budget of any college student except maybe Mark Zuckerberg. There is no good reason for me to own one, and while it's possible, it's not plausible. The most likely explanation for me making this claim to you is that I'm lying in order to make a point about believing things without good evidence, which is in fact exactly right. If I were to claim that I have the ability to walk on water, I think nothing short of an in-person demonstration would convince you that my claim is true. And even then, if I did it right here and right now, if you have a skeptical mind or know any physics, you'd think it was some sort of trick or hoax. And you would be reasonable to think that. The reason is that there are ways to fake walking on water by putting a large piece of glass just below the surface, say, which violate no laws of physics. And as rational people, we use what's called parsimony, or economy of assumptions. To believe my testimony that I can walk on water, you'd first have to assume that major discoveries in chemistry and physics are fundamentally flawed. You would quite reasonably demand a very high standard of evidence before you would go to assume that. The claim that I can walk on water is ridiculously unlikely. And to quote Carl Sagan, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Even if you had, say, a signed letter from someone testifying that she had seen me do this, which I have in that folder right there, you would still be justified in not believing the letter or me. I could have forged the letter myself, or paid her to write it, or she may have simply been mistaken about what she thought she saw. Even if you had a dozen such letters, there are 2 in there from doctors and 1 from a physicist, you would and should still be skeptical. Even if I had tens of thousands of living eyewitnesses swearing that they had seen me walk on water, this would not and should not convince you that I can break the laws of physics at will. Why not? Because it's impossible. And in order to believe something impossible, your standard of evidence is completely within reason, higher than any personal testimony, no matter how numerous or sincere. As rational people, we all perform this sort of critical thinking all the time. Even religious people do this with ease, examining and discarding the claims of other religions. A Christian has no trouble dismissing an Amazon faith healing as the placebo effect, or the miraculous sign of a Muslim hearing the exact song she was thinking of on the radio as mere coincidence. To quote Stephen Roberts, I contend that we are both atheists. I just believe in one fewer God than you do. When you understand why you dismiss all other gods, you will understand why I dismiss yours. I want you, the audience, to heighten your awareness tonight. I want you to be on alert for some common flaws in the usual arguments for Christianity. The topic tonight is Christianity true? Beyond defining Christianity, be especially aware of Jed expressing what he believes, or giving vivid, unrelated accounts of his background, rather than telling you why he believes it, a diversion in logic known as a red herring. Be on alert for the fallacy of appealing to consequences, arguing that something is true because believing it would bring you positive benefits. The question tonight is not, does Christianity lead to good things, but is Christianity true? Be on alert for Jed claiming to know that which he really only believes. Be alert for the claim, and this one's especially important, that the Bible provides us with sufficient evidence for the claims of Christianity. Many religions have so-called holy books, and the mere existence of supporting documents alone is insufficient as a standard of evidence. Be alert for the claim that prayer or divine revelation is proof positive that Christianity is true. People of every religion, Hindus, Muslims, the ancient Greeks, all make these claims. As an argument, faith fails because it is non-exclusive to Christianity. Most importantly, pay attention to your own thoughts. As you listen to us, think hard about what you tell yourself these statements mean. Examine your gut reactions critically. Analyze our reasoning. Ask yourself, does this make sense? Are there good reasons for me to believe it? What factual errors or errors in reasoning am I hearing? If I never heard of it before tonight, what would it take to convince me that Christianity wasn't just another ancient theology? Thank you.
I believe Christianity is true because it answers the basic fundamental questions of life. I've already addressed how it answers the question of origins. The second fundamental question of life that any philosophy or any religion has to answer is the question of meaning. Why are we here? We've all asked that. One of the first words a little child learns is a three-letter word called why. Why mommy? Why daddy? Why uncle? Why auntie? Why grandpa? These children assume there is an answer, and that we as grown-ups ought to have the answers. Christianity answers the question of why we're here. The Westminster Confession of 1647, which is one of the most respected doctrinal statements in the English language, says, or asks the question, what is the end of man? And the answer is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. When Paul was speaking to the Greek philosophers at Athens, he told them the purpose was for men to seek God, if perhaps they may feel after Him and find Him, though He be not far from any one of us. For in Him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your poets have said. And we are also His offspring. We are the offspring of God. We are made in God's image. That gives us dignity. That makes life meaningful. And we all know we have dignity. That's why if someone insults us, or calls us a liar or whatever, we're offended. Because we intuitively know life has dignity. My worldview supports the dignity of man. The evolutionists teach that man is basically just an animal. Further along on the evolutionary scale than, say, a monkey. Where's the dignity in that? Where's the significance of life in that? They don't think we're the offspring of God. We're the offspring of apes or whatever. Now the third question any religion, any philosophy has to answer is the question of morals. What is our moral foundation? We all have this sense of I ought not. Dave is saying we ought to be able to defend our beliefs. We ought to be able to give reasons for what we say. We ought to be honest intellectually. We ought to be honest in our scientific experiments. Now we've all had a sense of guilt. We've done things we know we ought not to do. Where does this come from? Matter? Something physical? I say it comes from a moral being. Which makes more sense? A universe in which the ultimate reality is a moral person, or a universe in which moral persons are a late and insignificant byproduct of impersonal forces. And this is basically what evolution and atheism is saying, that man is a late and insignificant byproduct of impersonal forces, and ultimately has no more value than a pig. But we believe that we are the offspring of God. And the ultimate reality is a moral person. Christianity makes sense. The last question any religion, any philosophy answer is the question of destiny. What happens after life? We all want to know that. Anything? Well, because Jesus rose from the dead, we have hope beyond the grave. Jesus, speaking of His resurrection, said, because I live, you shall live also. So Christianity gives us hope, and men need hope to survive. When people lose hope, they fall into depression. Often then commit suicide. People can't bear to live without hope. Christianity gives us hope. Christianity gives us faith. And Christianity gives us love or charity.
Thank you, Jim. Well, this argument 4 questions that any philosophy or religious system has to answer. I recognize this argument. This is Rabbi Zacharias from his 1997 book, Deliver Us from Evil, Appendix D, The Indistinguishable Light. I think it's on page 219. And this argument has been thoroughly discredited by philosophers. The first time I heard this argument, my first thought was, why 4 questions? It made me think of Bishop Irenaeus writing in Against the Heresies in 180 CE on why there must be 4 and only 4 canonical Gospels, despite the 60 or so that were in circulation at the time. And he said that it's not possible that the Gospels can be either more or fewer in number than they are, because there are 4 zones of the world in which we live and 4 principal winds. In Greek, it's literally 4 Catholic spirits. He means like the north wind and the south wind, the east wind and the west wind. And while the church is scattered throughout all the world, it rests on 4 pillars of the earth. This is not a logical argument. There is no tie to how many pillars the earth is resting on or how many winds there are to how many gospels there should be. Similarly, this is a bare assertion, it's called, in logic, when you just make a statement and you don't justify it or back it up with any reason. I propose a 5th question that any system has to address if we're to take it under serious consideration as something we ought to live by. The Bible certainly offers answers to the questions of origins and meanings and morals and destiny, but the elephant in the room is it true? And I think that's the 5th thing, and the thing that really matters the most. Jed's reasons for believing that this is true are all bare assertions. He says, let's note them down. We believe that we are the offspring of God. Good for you. I'm glad that you think that. If it makes you happier, I'm not going to try to take it away from you, but that's not a justification for why it's a fact. And what we're trying to get to the bottom of tonight is whether Christianity is true or not, but not, as I said in my opening statement, what Jed believes. He said we're made in God's image. That, again, is an assertion and not an argument. We intuitively know that life has dignity, an assertion, not an argument. There is dignity, if you ask me, in being, and we're not the offspring of monkeys. Monkeys and humans are both the offspring of a common ancestor. But it doesn't mean that humans have no value or that life has no value. You create your own value and you make meaning in your life based on what you can contribute and what's important to you. I'm saying that the standard by which we judge an explanation as satisfactory or coherent is how well it fits objective reality, how well it fits the evidence, how well it fits logic and reason, the ways that we have of determining what's real and what's not real, what's coherent and what's incoherent. And Christianity does not satisfactorily or coherently fit the evidence or logic or reason. There are other systems that do. Metaphysical naturalism, by definition, is drawn from it's the view that there are only natural forces and things and causes of the kind studied by natural science, and it by definition fits the evidence the best. I'm not making an argument for metaphysical naturalism as much as just saying that there are other arguments out there. As far as these other things about origin of the universe, origin of life, meaning of life, destiny, there are plenty of answers to these questions offered by all sorts of different religions. There is no evidence or good reason to believe that it's any more complicated than what science can show us about how the world works. And if Jed wants to make a positive claim that it is more complicated than that, he has the obligation to justify that with something that we can all observe or agree on. I want to say that it's not a bad thing that life ceases with death. That means that life is special and unique, and we should cherish it and make the most of it. I'm out of time. Thank you.